Those in favor? Mr. Oppenheim?
Sorry.
Those in favor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you. We're now down to consent agenda item general. Dr. Murray.
Ms. Burt, Dr. Murray, members of the board, you have before you the recommendation for a consulting contract with Mr. Eric Stringfellow and
Wait, I can't hear.
I'm sorry. We're on the approval of the consulting agreement with Mr. Eric Stringfellow and Jackson Public Schools. And that agreement, our recommendation is to contract with Mr. Stringfellow to provide services to the district for its initiative, which is the Rediscover JPS. And of course, the administration recommends Mr. Stringfellow as a consultant to help in two big initiatives, and that is the outsourcing of the transportation department, our buses, and also to look at consolidation of schools in the district that might be recommended for closure or consolidation. The agreement calls for a compensation amount of $24,000. And it also has some provisions in there that outline exactly the scope of services, such as the grassroots community organization that will help the district get its message out, and also put before the district media outlets to help with this effort.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm trying to see how to begin. Help me get a better understanding as to why we really need this consultant for this item. Is this going to be such a heavy lift that no one that's already employed in the district when it comes to media outlet and I guess community work can't pull this off?
Dr. Murray.
Well, again, we're not bringing this forward as a duplication of services. What we found is Mr. Stringfellow has worked with the district on a couple of other occasions. The last time when we had a school closure or consolidation program, and just recently, my first board meeting, there was some conversation about the work that he was able to do with the last administration and the successful the momentum that we had picked up in the community. So there were some positive things that had happened with that, and we wanted to continue that momentum. We have some major pieces that will be coming to you all in a few weeks. We talked about the school consolidation study and the school bus study that was a part of our CAP. And we think that that would be a major piece that we will need additional support for. I think that what happens is we get we're not clear on the, well, I'm not going to say we're not clear, but the organizational structure of the media relations department involved, that's really two people. And so you talk about Sherwin Johnson and Mrs. Donald. And so in one day, they could get a news situation at Forest Hill that would take up their entire day. And so they're also participating in they're assisting the board with the superintendent search. So these are all dynamics that are happening every day. When we talk about a school consolidation or some of the things that we're proposing, we need someone full-time that can do that work in the community. And again, when events happening on the weekends at night requires overtime. And so we don't have the staff to do everything that we need to do, and we're not, again, it's not a duplication of services. Those things that department will do, they will continue to do, and they do that well. This is a specific project. Again, we list multiple things on the contract, but this is a specific focus as per the CAP and some of the things that we will be rolling out to the community that will need everybody's attention. And again, we just think, like every other department, that we have consultants that provide support for specific projects that we need help with. This is no different. And so that's why we make that recommendation to the board.
Let me follow up just briefly and quickly. Because you brought up the issue about some past work. And again, this isn't disparaging anyone. And in fact, I want you to sell your case. I really do. But if I remember correctly, there was some differing opinions about past work. And so I just want to be, and to be fair to him too, I think the record needs to be clear even for him. So let's put that out there for me. Explain to me exactly what did he do before that gained all this great momentum for the district and was on the move with doing things.
Again, when I came into the seat, the board meeting, my first board meeting actually, the report came, there was some areas that we had not traditionally been in. I think there was, and I can't quote all the places, but there had been some meetings with economic development. We had gotten an opportunity to meet with some influential people that we felt could help us, and it was more of a grassroots approach. So those were the outcomes that occurred with the last time he was with the district. Prior to that, again, I'm not aware of any challenges that existed with the closure. You know, it happened. You know, it was there was some community. I'm sure there was community pushback on that. But again, so from my understanding, the outcomes have been sufficient according to the information that I had going into this. The need is there. We're looking at right now. The Media Relations Department is putting together a proposal for additional support to help us continue to brand our district. And the goal of that department is to focus on internal and external communications, especially in the midst of what's happening now. With the audit, we're bombarded daily with requests for things. So the need for support is there. And as we move again into the conversations that you will be hearing about in the near future, there will be a need for someone to help us in the community to navigate this. And this is the person that we have recommended for that.
One of the things that, Kim, to your question, and Dr. Land and Mr. Jones, one of the things that I recall, because I was in some of those meetings, I would hear some of the business people say, well, you know, we didn't know what was going on inside Jackson Public Schools. We didn't know your superintendent. We didn't know what he was thinking. We didn't know. And why do you not make sure that this person has access to all of our business community, to our churches, to people that we need support from all over the city, and sustained support. The things that this body cannot do, we all have other jobs, and the things that the media relations don't do because it's kind of outside the scope of what they're doing. Making sure that there are appropriate articles in the paper that reflect the superintendent's view and the school district view. Making sure that the different community organizations in both public and private sector, that there's access to. I think that these are just a few of the things, because I'm always hearing people say you don't have a presence in the community from your chief executive officer. So I think that there's value in that. I think that most everybody has this kind of a person. Plus, if we're going to think about having to make some major changes in terms of our school structure, whatever it ends up being concerning transportation or looking at how our schools are situated, the number that we have, and making any changes in them, we're going to need somebody to help that process get pushed out into the community in a way that keeps the community informed, but also allows that process to go on in our media relations to continue doing the work that they're doing. Dr. Land, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones, and then Dr. Land.
Yeah.
I have a question too.
Okay.
And I just want to echo what you said. I mean, you just nailed it. And one of the pieces of the puzzles that you'll hear me say all the time is that what good is it that we're doing what we're doing if we don't have a way of communicating to the public as well as the parents or anybody else? What I saw the last time we had him, and I can only speak on what I saw as results, is that he had a connection with not just the media, but he had a connection with some of the other legislators and some of the other business community people who really now we probably seeing some of the results of their relationships that they had. But I can tell you this, that sooner or later we're going to have to become excellent in how we communicate, whether we use what we have or bring somebody else in. At this point, we can't afford to not have that. We have to become expert in how we communicate to the public what we are doing. And I just think that for me, based on what I've seen him do here recently when he was with us before, I can tell you that I've seen some of the results because I've talked to some of the people. I've talked to some of the community people, and they were surprised to know, especially when we had those town hall meetings. They were surprised to hear some stuff, and that's the kind of stuff that we have to do. We have to continuously to promote. We have to continuously to be out there and let them know where we are and where we stand, good or bad. We need to be able to do that. And if we're going to do something now's the time, in my opinion, that we should do it.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. To echo colleague Ms. Campbell, I agree. I think that we have 4 CAOs that are out in these schools representing their people, and I feel that they are well-heeled so that they have met whatever qualifications they need to be in this. So they are, at least in my mind, should be able to tell a story. We have another department that's purposed to tell our story, to get it out there, and I think that's an excellent team. The question I have, there were some concerns, Ms. Turner, at the end of his contract that we had to discuss. Yes. And so within that, my question is, have we gotten a statement from the state auditor's office in reference to what's contract work compared to before, as it relates to getting paid for work that was performed before, based on that thing that we got caught up with,
I don't think we have any statement from the state auditor. What we did was we went to the board and had the board authorize filing a suit that would provide the board a court order authorizing the payment to Mr. Stringfellow for the services that he provided and the compensation that was not provided for in his contract. That would be to avoid getting anything from the state auditor, because what you would have is that a contract said he's due certain amount and he's going to be paid for certain services. Mr. Stringfellow exceeded that, and the process of going and getting an amendment for the board to approve that additional compensation and those additional services wasn't brought to the board for authorization before the work was provided. Mm-hmm. So in order for the board to be able to legally pay that, what we recommended, Ms. Shepherd and I, was you do what's called a quantum merit proceeding, where you essentially go to court, and you go to court and you say this is what happened, and you get a court order that authorizes the board to make that payment. So that process, Ms. Shepherd followed that process presumably, and it happened.
Okay, I guess my question, thank you so much. I don't mean to cut you off, Ms. Shepherd. I guess my question is, if you're performing work before a contract is signed, then where are we in that? Because I know we're under everybody's eyes right now, and I like clarity for the sake of communication and positioning. And where would that speak as it relates to how a contract person is brought on in terms of the work they've done before a contract was signed, or whatever's perceived to be done before?
Well, Ms. Shepherd, made an effort to specifically address that by putting some language in this contract that we both looked at that essentially put in boldface in large type that here are the services that you are being retained to provide. This is the compensation that you will be paid. You will be paid no additional compensation, and you should not provide any other services unless and until you come before the board and get that approved. So with that situation happening the last time, we tried to head it off by putting express language in the contract that would put Mr. Stringfellow, administration, all the appropriate parties on notice about this is what will have to happen before any additional services can be done or money could be paid to him other than the compensation that's been laid out to you this evening.
Okay, great. The other question is as we look at some of the services allegedly that will be performed, we talked about there's some pieces in there like who wrote this, because some of the information in there did not come before the board before we have a chance to get preview of possible school closures or transportation, you know. And so we hadn't had a chance as a board to vet this, and the company's already been held, you know, before we get the information. I'm feeling kind of like I'm getting secondhand information before somebody outside the district gets it, and that kind of.
Can I speak that? Well, the information was provided through the CAP. In the CAP, we specifically.
Okay, I'm gonna break it down again. If the board has not met, or we have not been given information specifically about those particular items, to you know, with information in terms of budgetary, in terms of enrollment, or what have you, that we can look at as a board to discuss that move, not necessarily with the CAP, because that's an action item that puts us back in line. But we're talking about procedural information that decisions have to be made on, and if that information has been discussed with an outside party before the board has it, then that's I'm getting secondhand information.
Yes, sir. But in the contract, it expressly communicates that he will assist, if approved by the board, assist with school closure, consolidation, and the outsourcing study. So there is no. The board would have to approve any closure or consolidation, so that information will not be public or it won't be relevant unless the board approves it. So again, we are in the midst of a study which we expressly communicated in the audit that we would do that. We would study this and we would come back to the board with a recommendation. So in that, knowing that we're going to be making some recommendations, then we will, he has not been privy to any information that the board has not been privy to. Dr.
Land.
Yeah, let me just say this. I mean, we go through this a lot. We see these contracts all the time. If we need to change how we're doing things, then let's do that. But this is not the first time. This is how these things, I mean, when we get these contracts, and we have time, sometimes we don't. I have to admit to that. Sometimes we don't on time, and sometimes it's quite frankly, it's not at a convenient time for us because we don't have that time to vet it. But for the most part, yeah, I don't want us to get hung up, because this is what's been happening for a while. That don't make it right. But if we need to fix the process, let's fix the process and not just focus on just trying to fix one thing today. But let's just fix the process. And I agree with Mr. Jones. We do need to look at how we're going to do these in the future so that this part of it can be clear and without doubt. So if we need to look at how we can make that happen, then that's the process I think that we need to take. But to get it to, once it gets to the board, you know, we have two attorneys that we have to trust that have looked at this document, and that if something is wrong, then we're paying them, we hold them accountable. And that's the way it's supposed to happen in the real world. But we need to make sure that, you know, by the time we get this, that we would have had a process in place to make sure that if there's anything in here that don't need to be in here without the board approval, then that needs to happen.
And
Question.
Yes, Mr. Oppenheim.
Thank you, and thank you for all that. And I echo Ms. Campbell's remarks, which reflected definitely some of the questions I sent prior to this meeting about this particular contract. And I want to make clear that I don't have an issue with Mr. Stringfellow, and it's not an issue with the media PR folks. But if we're given this contract, we have now essentially paid for a full-time position for the whole year, which to me, we may as well have somebody on our staff who could do this. Secondly, if the issue is the fact that we're unable to do it and it's not a duplication of services per se, then maybe what we need is some training support so that we can do it, because our biggest asset that's not being utilized here is our young people who can and very much do make a lot of positive media regularly about what's going on positively in our school. The other thing is, this is absolutely our responsibility as a board. This is a conversation that the board needs to be taking on in terms of going out to community, because that's our responsibility. That's why we're here. And yes, while we all have other jobs, we also all signed up for this so that we are doing our responsibility to the community in which we serve, which includes going out and being the face of the community, being the face of the district for these kind of issues that arise. I don't remember all the circumstances of the last school consolidation, the rezoning and whatnot. I do remember quite a big outcry, and a lot of that was because it seemed like from the community standpoint that the board wasn't present, that it was just thrust upon people. And I know we're getting out ahead of this, which is important, but again, that should be us as board members who are out talking to our community folks, working with folks. We had 50 folks in the boardroom meeting the other night representing all different kinds of organizations who as well would get involved and help lead this charge. I don't know why we keep on going to consultants because what's happening is that we keep on giving a new contract, and this is becoming a catch-all position as a consultant, rather than how do we systematize the work that he's doing or whoever that consultant would be doing, and make this more about what we're supposed to be doing. It's not much of a question, but that's where a lot of my frustration about this lies.
Well, thank you, Mr. Oppenheim. I see this as a different position than what you just described in terms of bringing that level of visibility to this district. I don't think that our students can do that because I think we're talking about something different. I really don't think our CAOs can do it. It's outside the bevy of their job description. There's no way that they can concentrate on this kind of a project because it is something that needs to be done all the time. And I think that this kind of person is going to provide additional support to the administration. That's going to take some of that off administration, that's going to help the administration in the long term by being able to have these connections in the community that we don't have. Now, maybe we should have them, but we don't have them. And excuse me, may I finish? So we don't have them, and so in order to get them, then somebody has to do them. We as a board, yes, we have our own connections in the community, but Mr. Oppenheim, we all have to do all kinds of things like, not be here when we really need to have somebody doing something. We all have our own responsibilities. And if our administration is saying that this position helps the administration to function more efficiently, it seems to me that we ought to be supportive of that. Dr. Lance?
And I'm not going to make a long comment, but I want to stress one thing. Our job is to support this administration, and if this administration asks us for support in an area that he thinks that he needs, then I think that we need to make sure that first and foremost that we support him, hold him accountable for the end results, and then move on. But I just wanted to make sure that we understand that our foremost important job is to make sure that we support the superintendent, and so that we can get what we're trying to get, the end results for our children. That's the whole purpose.
Can I add something? I'm sorry. Yes. And just from a cost standpoint, this is not additional funds. This is savings from positions that we've not filled this year. So again, this is not additional money that we're pulling out from the budget. This is savings again from positions that we've not filled.
Ms. Sims?
Yes, Dr. Murray and Mrs. Burke, I just think we need to, as a board, to be clear what we're asking him to do. We need to be clear, and as Mr. Jones said, we are really pre-thinking and pre-involving him into some things that we as a board has not even actually discussed yet. And I think some of these things may be coming up in our work session, but I would like to make sure that we can give him the directives based upon our needs at the current time and not getting him involved with things that we've not clarified yet. And we do need to clarify them prior to going to public, but there is certainly a need for our community, for our leaders, and for even what Mrs. Miller brought forth today on the legislative agenda. We do need someone to advocate for us. But to me, I'm not comfortable right now with the scope that we're asking him to attend to. And that seems to be, I'm just not clear on that, and because we're asking him to do some things in terms of the scope that we've not even had an opportunity to discuss. So we do want to be supportive of the administration in getting our focus out. We do want our verbiage to be succinct, that we're saying the right thing to the public, that we're saying the right message, and we have one voice. And we don't need to have a scattered voice. We need to have one voice that's going out from our administration. So that is my opinion, that I don't mind a contract, but we do need to have some framework as to what Mr. Stringfellow will be doing. And we're going to need to have some sort of mechanism in cooperation that we're getting that one message out at all times and not a scattered message. But we do need a messenger or a message mechanism to get our message forth out. And the public did, I honestly believe, appreciated the district going out to the different wards, being able to see, touch, and ask those questions that they don't get to ask at our board meetings. So I think it was greatly appreciated, and the business community appreciated it too, as well as our elected leaders. So I think there's certainly an importance here. We just need to make sure that the framework by which we're asking him to do work is worded in such a way that we know what we're getting and we can give him the message. So that's my point.
So why don't we
Madam President, can I make a recommendation? It
Yes.
might be better, since we're going to be meeting next week, that we may pull this and make it part of our agenda in that work session.
That's exactly what I was
So
going
that
to
we do more
suggest that we
vetting.
do. Yes.
Because at the end of the day, there could be some old points that we need to make to put in this contract to make it work for us if we need to. So I would say let's
Thank
move.
you, Dr. Lamb. That's exactly what I was going to suggest, that we do that to develop such a framework, and then we can determine how to move forward. Dr. Murray?
That's fine.
Okay. We're now down to consent agenda items, personnel.
Good evening again, Ms. Burt, Dr. Murray, members of the board. I present to you consent agenda items personnel. A, approval of staff personnel matters, and B, approval of the 2017-18 school calendars.
Motion for,
Can we discuss the calendar separately?
yes. Motion for, can we get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Question?
Okay, yes. At G2, was that as we look at that, is that an error in the from to? I see where disposition.
No, sir. Let me, one of the things that the Mississippi Department of Education assisted us with through the audit was that when we issue contracts and letters of employment, that they reflect the amount of money that's actually going to be paid.
Sure.
So what this does now is instead of listing the full amount, because this is actually the number of days that this person will be working at that rate.
I got you.
So it has to match.
Okay, I got you. Okay, thank you. The other question I have too, if I may, I know that